Okay, and I think we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's KordKutters. Hopefully, this works better than I'm thinking it will. Mostly because it doesn't seem like it's working at all. Yeah, there's a little bit of a delay going on,
and I think we are live.
But I think we're good to go. So, hey everybody, this is Nate. Let me do a little fun pre-roll here. And welcome to this week's KordKutters. Hopefully, this works better than I'm thinking it will. Mostly because it. Yeah, that was great. That was very exciting. Too much stuff is going on all at once. Alright, so this week we unfortunately once again don't have Ned. He's got some family stuff going on. So we're going to just spend a bit of time talking about all the various things that he and I talked about last night. And hopefully if people pop on, we'll be able to, have a conversation about all of those things. But for now, I guess I'll just kind of start getting into it. The big list, and I think you can already kind of see what we're going to get into here. The big list, the things we're talking about with this idea of the best gifts, is not necessarily obvious Cody gifts. Which, I mean, there are a couple that are pretty obvious. Like you could get a Raspberry Pi, and that would work great, or whatever. But and I'll be talking about that a little bit. But the idea is more, what kind of weird gifts can you get that are Cody related that would work? And the one that both of us kind of came back to over and over again was, now that retro players slowly starting to become a thing, there's this company out there called 8-Bit Do, and I'll pop back to the main company page here. And they sell all kinds of really, really cool controllers. These things are all Bluetooth enabled and designed to work with just about every gaming system out there. So they're not stuck with just one platform or one system. Like, for example, the standard, the controller that we're all aware of that I have sitting somewhere, the Xbox 360 controller, it's a great controller, feels good in the hands, but it doesn't work very well outside of the Windows platform. Linux drivers for it, for example, are famously terrible. So it's not a great recommended controller for everybody, which is where these things come in. The one that seems to be getting the most praise is this one right here, the NES 30. Which, as you can see, it's basically just a regular old Nintendo controller, except it has all kinds of extra buttons. And it's got support for iOS, Android, Mac, Windows. It's got upgradable firmware. The software platform for it's great. I don't know. It's just a great platform. And that's basically the entire thing with 8-Bit Do. I've personally never used one. Ned's got one and says it's awesome. But yeah, man, I think this is, if you want to go out on a limb and get something real weird for a relative or just for yourself, this might be the way to go. Oh, and people are indeed already commenting. So we have Christian, Allen, and Julian. Hey, everybody. As I go along, I'm going to talk about some things, but if you guys have any good suggestions, feel free to point them out in the comments, and I'll try to address those too, because my list is definitely not the end-all be-all of lists, and I'd be happy to talk about more things as we go along as you suggest them. No, Julian, I only just started about 4 minutes ago, and this is the very first thing I'm talking about. So the NES controller is pretty cool. Let's move on, though, to what I think is the most hilarious gift, which I don't think you can buy. The Steam-powered game cabinet from ThinkGeek. This was a oh shoot, an April Fool's joke, and it absolutely doesn't work. I'm assuming. I don't know, but just you need to look at the list of these specs. This is the gift that you should tell people you're getting them, and then get them something better. But the specs on this thing are absolutely fantastic. Here, I'm gonna flip over so you can see a little bit better. Yeah. It's a steam machine that's actually steam powered. It is, let's see, it's got 400 bits of hardwired Ferret core memory. And it's powered by a coal-fired burner with a 200 psi rated steam vessel. Truly, this is the game cabinet that we are all looking for. Yeah, okay, so don't really get anybody for this. Or if you do, God, I really don't know. Oh, no. You really can't buy it. It's so sad. I wish that they would just sell a case, frankly. Maybe not with the fire. Or maybe with a little picture of fire. I don't know. Anyway, don't really get anybody this, and don't bother clicking the button. But it's a fantastic case to tell people you got. Instead, I think this is a really cool thing. We've already talked about this. There's another video which I'll link to, over here later on. But there's a video where I actually went out to Dell to talk to the Alienware guys about the Alienware Alpha. And we kind of went through the paces of that whole video, showing what it can do. And I think in the next couple days, probably on Tuesday, we're going to release a video on this channel going through the paces once again, showing how the whole thing works. Just because it's such a cool idea. This is the Alienware Alpha. They have two cases out now. There's the Alienware Alpha and the Alienware Steam Machine, and all the other stuff that they have. Oh, here. Yeah, the Alienware Console and the Alienware Steam Machine. I'm not going to recommend the Steam Machine to anybody because, frankly, it doesn't have anything to do with Kodi. You can launch Kodi from within Valve's Steam OS. We have that support out there. But this is the much cooler box. And here's the reason why. There are actually a couple reasons. Number one, and most importantly, because it's a Windows box, it runs basically every game under the sun. All by itself, that's reason enough to stick with the Windows box. Number two, and from a Kodi perspective, this is why I think you should stick with the box, it runs Kodi. That's what the Alienware Alpha's software, which is called HiveMind, is actually a derivative of Kodi. It's all it is, it's Kodi, but the actual Kodi, I think 15.2 or 14.2 or something, one of those, I'm not sure which. But it's Kodi with just a skin on top of it, and the way it works is that skin, very niftily in my opinion, works with another application to completely take over control of your Windows box, making it possible to directly from within Kodi launch all of your games, type in all of the text you need to type in. Oh, let's get rid of that. I don't want that. Type in all the text you need to type in and everything else just directly from a controller. I'll show this off more over the next, in the next few days, just so you guys can get a better grasp of it. Or you can check out that video we did in the past, but it's a little low resolution because, you work with what you have. So I don't necessarily recommend going back to that just to check it out, because there's going to be better video out there showing what it can do. But it's a very cool device. So if you're looking for a Kodi device and you don't mind spending some money, this is probably a cool way to go. Now, if you're willing to go a little bit cheaper, this is obviously one of the most popular devices out there. Oh, shoot, and there's one other thing I want to look up that I want to point out. But this here is the the Nvidia Shield, and it is very cool. Once again, I did a review of this one. You can check that out once again right over here. Right right there. But the review for this thing, it's just phenomenal. It's basically one of the most powerful PCs out there, ARM-based PCs out there. It runs Android TV like a dream. It runs it substantially better than the Nexus player does. And I don't know if this is some setting that I'm screwing up or what. I have both, so I'm able to kind of compare the two. And the Nexus player does do fairly well across a couple different areas. But one thing that I've noticed that must be purely a software-based issue, and I don't know what that issue is that if you're familiar with the Android TV OS, there's a bar for recommendations and then a bar for maybe it's just the next one's a bar for your apps. I'm suddenly blanking on what it is, but there are a couple different bars, and then at some point there's a bar for all of your apps, and oh, here I have it on this other screen over here that you can't see. Oh, okay. So yeah, there's a bar for your apps, and on the Nexus player, for whatever reason, the bar always lists all the Google stuff first, then all the pre-installed stuff, and then finally all the apps that you're actually using, which is not fun. It's not cool, mostly because as a Kodi user, that means you have to go all the way to the end to get to Kodi. Whereas with the Nvidia Shield, if you use Kodi a lot, you can just go straight to Kodi at the front, and it works perfectly. And it's the first thing listed because that's the thing you use most. And that is, by the way, the thing you use most. We spoke recently with the nice reps from Nvidia, talking to them about what we can do to improve the ecosystem, what they can do to work with us, all that stuff. And one of the things that came out of that meeting that we found out about was that Kodi is the #1 viewed application on an Android TV, which is really cool. And what that means is we're not the most launched application. I think YouTube is easily the winner there. What we are, though, is the app that keeps screen time the most. So, like, we don't get launched as often, but we do get used the most while we're launched, which I guess probably isn't a big surprise. I mean, you can do just about everything with that add-on. I mean, with that app. There's no real reason to leave Kodi once you get into the Android. Once you get into it from Android TV. So it was cool. It was a really cool conversation we had with them. And since then, or maybe right before then, they've become a sponsor for the Kodi Foundation. And they're just really nice people to work with. So yeah, man, that's a pretty cool device. If you don't care so much about Android TV and you're more interested in OpenELEC, then I feel like I should give a shout out to our other two sponsors, WeTech and Minix, who both make Android boxes that, frankly, most of our developers use as OpenELEC boxes because they're inexpensive, they're small, especially if you're in Europe. Then they have over-the-air TV capabilities, or at least some of them do. I think maybe that's just the WeTech box. I'm blanking now, sorry. But those work for over-the-air TV in Europe, and they work really well. And, as far as OpenELEC goes, they're awesome. For Android TV, I generally tend to prefer giving a shout-out to Nvidia just because, I don't know, it's the device I have and use all the time, so it's hard not to give it a shout-out. But, whatever. That's what I would personally recommend everyone get because it's just a great box. Next on the list, and this is already looking like it's going to be a really short day, but let's see. Yeah, next on the list, let me drag this over, is the Sony Bravia TV. Oh, there's a bar. Oh, sorry, I haven't been paying attention to the chat. Julian says he bought one last Black Friday. It's really great. I'm assuming you're talking about the Android TV, and that's actually another thing worth talking about. Yes. That's one thing. There are actually a couple different conversations going on in the comments that are worth talking about. Number one is the Nvidia Shield recently dropped their prices for Black Friday, and they might still be dropped. And from our end, we can see how many people install it from the Google Play Store and stay installed and stuff like that. And wow, the Shield has gone way up in terms of number of installs. The Nexus Player is still edging it out quite a bit, which is to be expected probably because it's dramatically cheaper. But it's starting to become much more neck and neck. Yeah. But with all that said, there are two software things to consider if you're getting the Nvidia Shield. First, Scott Hansen. Yes, the Shield does work well with Samba, just because that's how I do it. I do all of my sharing over Samba, so it works great, at least in my experience. The two software things worth talking about are, number one, the Shield works well, but at the moment it doesn't have a context menu button. It does actually with the controller. Here, I have both the controller and the remote, so I'll show you. Let's see. So this is the controller. This is what comes with the Nvidia Shield by default. But with that said, the Nvidia Shield's been shipping with their remote control as part of the holiday deal. I don't know if they'll keep doing that, but if you can get it while they're shipping with this included, you should absolutely do it because it's way better. I mean, it's way better in the sense that this is really big and heavy. It's great for gaming or whatever, but if you just want to control the TV, this is clearly a superior solution. The downside to this, of course, is that there's no context menu button. There's a back button, a home button, which takes you all the way back to the Android TV home, a talk button, and then the standard up, down, left, right, and OK button. So Kodi doesn't have a context menu button with the current version of Kodi that's in the Google Play Store. The new version of Kodi 16, which you can sideload as an APK right now, that does support long press, which means you hold down the OK button and it'll open up the context menu that way. And that'll work for anything, actually. Long press works all across the board. As long as you have some sort of device that can handle long press, then it should work. But especially for Android, it's become fairly critical because it's just so terrible not having context menu, at least in my opinion. But yeah, so we're now into beta 3 of Kodi 16. Whenever that finally does, Egan, Baz Egan, you're right. Context button does work in beta 3. Once we finally release Kodi 16 final, it'll get up in the Google Play Store, and you won't need to sideload it to get the context menu button, which is long press, I mean. But until then, you're going to need to sideload. But it's still, I mean, we're up to beta 3. We might have a beta 4, and then we're probably going to go into release candidates, hopefully. So that was the answer to one question. The second question, I already handled Samba. The second question is more Android TV generic, which is there going to be recommendations in the first bar? Shoot, I really wish that I had a way to show Android TV here. Man, I kind of do, but I don't have any way to do it right off the cuff, so I can't do it today. But there is no plan at the moment to introduce recommendations to the top search bar on Android TV, which means if, like, you have recently added TV shows, they're not going to go up there. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, sorry. You should get an Android TV device, and you'll be on top of things. There's no plan to introduce recommendations now for a couple reasons. The biggest one is that in order to make recommendations work, you have to have Kodi running in the background. So while we could have recommendations right now, and I think there might even be a proof of concept PR for it, they only work after you've already launched Kodi. We don't have the ability to launch Kodi at launch in Android because we don't have the ability to make Kodi headless. There's a whole forum thread about this, and it's something that we're eventually going to have to deal with, because headless is becoming more and more critical to all kinds of other things, not just Android TV related. But what we need to be able to do is launch just the underlying software of Kodi without launching the whole GUI. And once we're able to do that, we'd be able to do recommendations fairly easily. So I don't know when that's going to happen. Kodi 16 obviously not, because we're already in beta, no more features. Kodi 17 also probably not, because I don't know anybody working on it. There is a version of headless Kodi in the store, or in the being developed right now, but it's not the way we want it to be released. It's not developed the right way. There are a lot of things in the in the application that depend on the GUI to work, and as long as that's the case, then it's not a really true headless version of Kodi. So, I don't know. I don't know when recommendations are going to become a thing. Maybe we will add recommendations that just don't do anything until you've launched Kodi. Maybe we won't. I don't really know. Does the Shield support 3D? Scott Hansen. Yes, it does. Everything supports 3D, basically. I mean, that's how it works. It has HDMI 2.0, so there's no reason it shouldn't support 3D. In my own testing, though, I have noticed that it's real weird. With half side-by-side 3D files, for some reason, some of them work really well and some of them don't in Kodi. And the weird thing about it is that's true across the board. If you use VLC or if you use MX Player on the Nvidia Shield, then in all those situations, what happens is about half of the files, for some reason, only show one half of the video. Like they just show a 2D image of the video. I'm not really sure why that is. I keep meaning to mention it to the Android devs, and one of these days I'll get around to it. But I think that means I need to submit to them a whole 3D file, and that's a lot of work that I don't want to deal with. But sometimes it definitely does support 3D, and sometimes it definitely doesn't. If you are interested in 3D, it might be, and like 3D is the most important thing to you, it might be a better idea to go a little bit of a different way and maybe get like a Raspberry Pi 2 instead. Just because Raspberry Pi 2 has the best support for 3D across all devices, as far as I'm aware, using actual native Kodi support. Just because with the Raspberry Pi 2 using Kodi, you can actually send a signal to your TV saying this is a 3D signal, and no other device that I'm aware of can do that. So there's 3D. Average Man says, related to the Pi, the slice looks pretty cool. Was going a bit cheaper recently, probably because it still uses a compute module. Average Man, you are correct. The slice is really cool, and I don't know if I recommend getting it, but if you think it's cool, it's worth getting, specifically for this reason. If you followed the slice in the first place, the whole point behind it was that it gave you the box and everything in the box, and it had all the nifty lights and stuff. And what it ultimately allowed you to do, here, I'm going to flip over to this. What it ultimately allowed you to do that no other Raspberry Pi device can do is, whenever they release a new version of the slice, which, I mean, seems inevitable at some point, or excuse me, whenever they release a new version of the compute module, you still have the slice, and you can just pull out one compute module and stick in another. I don't know when that's going to happen. I think it's inevitable that it will, because that's just, it's just sort of been Raspberry Pi's way of doing things. And when that does happen, though, I feel like the slice is going to become one of the coolest Raspberry Pi based devices out there, just because it's suddenly like the best device out there. So there you go. That's the Raspberry Pi 2. I I don't know if I'd recommend getting the slice now. Maybe wait for that compute module whenever it comes out, or get it now. Like the slice compute module at the moment is based on the Pi 1, and most of my background with the Pi 1 is from 2 years ago, and it was awful, frankly, with Kodi. That's evidently not the case anymore. After reviewing the Pi Zero, I'm totally on board with the Pi 1 all of a sudden. It's a much better piece of hardware than I gave it credit for. So I don't know. I guess if you want to slice, get a slice, because it might just be as good as the Pi Zero, and if that's the case at this point in time, then man, by God, it's probably a good enough machine for anybody. All right, so Pi. That's all the Pi stuff. Next, Shield has felt like the best. Kodi. Okay, Robert Labar, I'm not really sure what your statement or question is, but I agree with it. And that is, if you had to pick between the kind of big three famous names at the moment, the big three companies, Google, Nvidia, or Amazon, then I think, without question, in terms of buying hardware, I think without question the Shield wins. Because... for a couple reasons. Because the Nexus player is the slowest of the three, and doesn't support a lot of the same things the other two do. And because the Fire TV doesn't allow Kodi in the store, which means you're not going to get updates nearly as easy or as fast, and you're going to have to go through this whole side-loading process to make updates work. For a variety of reasons, it just seems like the Shield is generally a better device. Plus, it comes with a cool little place to stick your headphones so you can listen to music with your remote control. It's very neat. Oh, Baz Igman. Oh, that's a good point. One way to get around all of these problems, there is something called Aptoid, which is it's an Android. It's like a version of Google Play, not run by Google. And they have a variety of Android apps as well, and oftentimes Kodi's on there. I don't know if our version of Kodi's on there. I don't know why it wouldn't be, but that would be another good way to get updates. Oh, hey, Rick Phillips, one of our developers, also known as Rook, is pointing out that he likes his 4K and gigabit Ethernet. I can't speak to either of those things because I don't use them. But 4K is cool. When I tested it out on that TV at the store, it looked great. And gigabit Ethernet is also good if your Wi-Fi is not very good. My Wi-Fi is at the point where I don't really need to worry about any of that stuff anymore. But if your Wi-Fi is terrible, gig Ethernet is amazing. Jesus Suarez asks, "Hi, how about the Pine 64?" Sorry, Jesus, I don't know what that is. Or maybe I do. Is the Pine 64 that thing being kickstarted right now? If so, I don't think I can give a recommendation for it at the moment. The problem with it is, and sorry if I'm wrong about this, I can't, this is definitely not an official Kodi stance in any way. And everything I say isn't an official Kodi stance, but this even more so. When I was reading about it, if it's what I think I was reading about, then the Pine 64 is based on Allwinner tech, and Allwinner we're not huge fans of, for a couple reasons. The big one is that Allwinner, if it's an Android-based device, is not a I don't, what's a good way to I don't know. It doesn't do a very good job sticking with the video support that we need for Android. And on the Linux side, a lot of times there are certain GPL blob violations with Allwinner that we're all very concerned about. If that's what I'm thinking of, then I can't think we'd be big fans of it. If it's not, then take nothing what I say as reality, because I frankly don't know. If it's something that you think looks cool, and if the devs have promised Kodi, my suggestion is to wait and actually see Kodi in action, and require them to show you HD video playback going on. Because otherwise, if it's an all-winner chipset, then we really don't know if it'll work inside of Kodi. And if they show you Kodi, then also ask them to show you the open source code, because I'd love to see that too. If it's not all-winner, and I'm sorry I'm going off on a tangent now, then ignore everything I just said. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. Yes, Byron thinks that even with good Wi-Fi, we should always go wired. Man, I don't know anymore. I think that was 100% true before we switched over to AC, but I feel like AC Wi-Fi these days is good enough. You should always do wired with your server. Keep the server wired directly to the router. But almost everything else, I don't know if you're going to get that much benefit out of wired. Maybe it'll help with ping times with games, but probably not. Maybe if you're like in a not very good part of the house, or if the Wi-Fi is not very good, maybe stick with wired. But I really think that the Wi-Fi is doing a pretty amazing job these days. So, the next thing on the list, Sony Bravia and the Android TV. If you have a lot of money to spend, and you don't mind being stuck with a TV where you can't really replace the guts every few years, then the Sony Bravia Android TV is a pretty cool purchase, because Kodi runs on it. And once Kodi 16 comes out, it'll run on it pretty well. At the moment, my understanding is that the way that we display the skin might slow it down a little bit at the moment. Yes, I'll get back to that in a second. But yeah, the Sony Bravia TV, and I think there are a couple others. Sony's just the one I have off the top of my head because we're actually in contact with them. Oops. There. The Sony Bravia TV is the only one that I have in my head because we're actually in contact with Sony, and we're actively working to make it a better platform. But any Android TV is a pretty cool purchase in my opinion. Just because I don't think we've ever had Kodi running directly natively on a TV before, and I just love the idea that it can happen. Scott Hansen, does HD Home Run Prime work with the Shield? When you say Prime, do you mean does it work with DRM related streams? I'll answer two different questions there. The first question is, does HD Home Run work at all? And the answer there is a definitive yes. HD Home Run works great. If you run Kodi on a Shield, it will have no problem running whatever you send to it from an HD Home Run. I think at this point it has MPEG-2 decoding and everything also built in. You don't have to rely on software. But even when you did have to rely on software, Kodi did a fine job because the chipset is just fantastic. HD Home Run Prime adds a new caveat, because the HD Home Run Prime lets you use cable card, and cable card has certain restrictions, or it can have certain restrictions based on who your cable provider is, and it can add DRM to the whole mix. If your channel that you're recording or watching includes DRM, then Kodi's version of the HD Home Run app, it's the add-on, I don't think it'll be able to play back that channel. I can't remember if they've released anything for the Android TV, if they have an actual app. I know there is a live channels that the TV itself supports, and I also don't know how well that works. So, Scott Hansen, I can answer that question next week, maybe. I guess I should start out with the explanation that I don't have the HD Home Run Prime, and I also don't have cable. I'm planning, actually, this weekend to install an HD Home Run Prime and a cable card at my dad's house. and then I'll get to find out all the questions that you're asking right now, or I guess this one question. But for now, I'm not really sure. Okay, so that's Sony, that's the Android TV, Alienware Alpha, the Steam-powered, the Steam-powered Steam box, and the 8-bit dough. I guess there's only one thing left, guys, and this is true for a little while longer, evidently. You guys keep making requests for this shirt, and we haven't turned off that thing that lets you restart a sale. So for the moment, at least, people are still buying these sweaters. The sales open and close like 4 or 5 times at this point, and they're still buying them. So I guess if you want to buy another one, feel free to, or buy one for the first time. I should let you know, we actually have a new sale getting ready to start here in December, so keep an eye out for that, because it's a sale that I'm personally very excited about. I can't really get into more details than that, though. But at the moment, this sweater's there. There's going to be some pretty cool stuff there in the future. Just keep an eye out and let me know what you think once you see it. And I think that might be it. I don't have any other recommendations. Does anybody else in the comments or wherever, if you've got any suggestions for other cool input devices or neat remote controls? I mean, there's always, if you're looking for a cheap gift, there's always this guy, the Flirk here, and I've pointed it out so many times that I feel ridiculous pointing it out again. But it's usually like around $15 or something. So if you're looking for a gift to give, just as like a white elephant gift, oh, it's at 20 now. It was 15 during the Black Friday sale, but it's a lot of times it's pretty cheap. And this is really, as far as white elephant gifts go, it's not too bad. If you're looking for a white elephant gift, this is probably a pretty good one. All the things that I've talked about so far are minimum. Oh man, I don't even know how much these things are. Shoot, let's look. 8-bit. 34 or 46. Yeah. So if you're looking for something a little bit cheaper for a white elephant gift, then the Flirk is really pretty neat. And I think that's it, guys. I don't have anything else to talk about. At least in terms of gifts to give people. Peggy McKenzie wants to know, will the Kodi app be on the Apple TV 4? Probably yes, Peggy. We know for certain that at least one dev is working on getting it there. He's not a team member. He's just a guy who's pretty smart, and he is a retired team member, and he's famous because he did all of the work to get it on all the Apple TVs of the past, or at least most of the other Apple TVs of the past. One of our current devs maintains all that stuff, and he worked. I don't remember the story anymore. Anyway, the guy who worked on a lot of that stuff is working on this too. So we believe that it'll eventually make it to the Apple TV 4. We don't have a timeline for that though, and at least we don't have any plans anytime in the near future of offering up Kodi on their the Apple Store for the Apple TV. It's going to be a jailbreak or these days you can compile it yourself kind of thing, which is pretty cool. But it's going to be a workaround if and when it does eventually make it. All right, guys, it's been quite a bit longer than I was expecting. We're at 44 minutes now. We might be a little bit less, but that's about all I've got to talk about this week. So I guess thanks for tuning in. If you guys have any more suggestions, for example, if you think this was all wrong, we shouldn't go with any of this and you should build your own really cool PC, or if you should do something like getting an Intel NUC, feel free to say so in the comments. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.